people, back with the Middlemen podcast. Happy New Year, 2022. I can't believe it's 2022. I can't believe
old, man.
We're 19 days into 2022. But Happy New Year, Max. Good to be back. Happy New Year to you.
Yes, thank you, mate.
How was it? Was it good?
Yeah, mate. Great holidays. Really fun, to be fair. I just had to be... It's a weird one, though, because it was like... You know, uni students, if you're listening to this, you'll understand how it gets. Like, deadlines just come proper late, and then you're like, I'm not really going to have any holidays, so let's just leave it at I worked hard, but I played hard. Maybe played harder as well. Coming up to New Year's, but yeah, no, it's an enjoyable time, man.
Good stuff. Yeah, you're right with uni deadlines. They're pretty hard at this time of year.
They get a bit stupid, to be fair. But we got January now. Nice time, nice little window in January for uni students. No uni until like the later of the month, and then you can just kind of chill out, record podcasts,
January transfer window,
everything like that.
Perfect stuff. Well, listen, 2022 is going to be massive for boxing. Let's start with a fight you're really excited about, the rumoured super featherweight blockbuster between the WBC champion Oscar Valdez and the WBO champion Shakur Stevenson. And I say rumoured because it will happen, but it's just when. Now, boxing journalist Dan Raphael, who's the Fabrizio Romano of boxing, if you like, he says the fight will likely go down on the 30th of April, the same day DAZN have planned to put up Katie Taylor versus Serrano, which is odd. I think this is where boxing goes up against boxing a little bit. I'm sure there'll be at different times. I'm not sure about it, but anyway. Valdez versus Stevenson, it's like you said on Instagram, Max. It's a knockout artist, and Valdez up against the high potential, hyper train in Stevenson. Both men are undefeated. Valdez, the Mexican, comes into the bout off the back of a title defence, the title he won from Miguel Berchelt last year. What a knockout that was. Yes. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. And Stevenson, I was thinking about this, just doing some prep for the podcast, and I remember one of my first ever articles for Boxing Guru, who Max and I used to write for, was on Shakur Stevenson. And it was on his defence of the WBO World Featherweight title against Colombia's Miguel Mariaga. Now, what was special about that fight? It didn't happen. It's what's special about that fight.
I was literally about to say.
So you don't remember it because it never happened. It was the first, I think it was, apart from the Olympic qualifiers that we were at, I think that was the first proper big bout to be called off because of COVID. So I was quite annoyed because I'd done a really nice article on it.
It was that time and effort into something that
completely made redundant, exactly. But I remember at the time writing about Stevenson, and people were saying this was March 2020. He was going to go on and be the next Floyd Mayweather, and the hype hasn't gone away. It's still there. If you're looking, I think you're looking at a future 4-weight world champion here. I really do. So the only thing for Stevenson, for me, is that COVID took away the Michael Conlan fight, who Lee Woods fighting. We're talking a lot more about that in the coming weeks.
Definitely.
There could have been a unification bout with Josh Warrington. That didn't happen because of COVID. Actually, I think that's a fight everyone would have loved to have seen. But there we are. We have got Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez. What a way to kick off 2022. First off, who wins? They were both world champions in the division below. So who loses their perfect record?
I think you're only... Best way to do predictions, and you can never go wrong, right? Even if your prediction is wrong, you can never go wrong by saying you're only as good as your last fight. And I think Stevenson's was career defining. His last fight is when I fully believed in him, because I was like, do you know what I mean? He's gone up the rankings and beaten who you need to beat to get to the titles, but there's no one big yet that is making me believe in him, that if he is put up against a test that he can overcome it. Jamal Herring was everything, was the exact kind of boxer that I needed to see Stevenson face for me to actually get a good judgment on him. And Stevenson, people like to talk about the ref stoppage, saying it's a bit early. I like the stoppage. I think Stevenson done everything, perfect fight. Valdez's wasn't, and a lot of people were saying that in his last fight.
He should have lost.
Yeah, he should have lost.
It was Robson Conseil, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was, do you know what I mean? Looking at both of them, Stevenson looks like he's just, like every fight he's just getting better and better. And you were saying there about his hype, like it hasn't gone away. It's just building more and more. And now I'm buying into it. And I fully think he can overcome Oscar Valdez here. He just has to. I think he knows what to do, especially with fighters like Valdez as well. Like he'll be cautious, he'll respect the power, but then he'll also come forward and he'll land his shots. And he's just slick. He's a slick worker. He's a really good operator, Shakur Stevenson. He's everything I like in a boxer. Because when I used to box, that was the kind of style that I would always try and go for. You know, like slick footwork, counter punching, like distance from range, like shots from range, outside, inside. I think he can really, as you said, he has the potential to be a I think even five-weight world champion if he sticks to his grind. You know what I mean? We say a lot of things. People have probably said that about Ryan Garcia before, but then things happen. But if he stays with the work rate, his activity, and his dedication now until the end of his career, I think he can go on to do crazy things. And I think his fight against Oscar Valdez is just a chapter in his success story.
You say all of that, and it just makes me feel like this is the fight that boxing needs. Like boxing needs an exciting, and this is one for the hardcores. I don't think you go around the general population.
Definitely, he's not the biggest name in it, and especially it's the problem you get with the lower weights as well. People will know Lomachenko in the lower weights, British casual. I don't like to. I feel like casual has too many negative associations with it now, using that word, but like fans that aren't hardcore will know like Warrington and you know, like British ones, for
which
example.
is understandable, to be fair.
Yeah, for sure. But I think maybe casuals in America will have heard of Stevenson, but this is what he needs to be doing.
It boosts,
to be heard by everyone.
Boxing as well. I think the whole sport. I don't think it's just good for those two.
Yeah.
I think for the whole sport, this fight is fantastic, especially if there is a big knockout or. I don't think there can be an upset either way. I mean, who do you think is number one? Who's number two? Oscar's number one because he beat Burchell, or is Stevenson number one because of his raw talent?
It is hard, isn't it? Like I think people are gonna want to go with Stevenson, but then you just can't write Valdez off. You see what he can produce, and you know how good of a fighter he is as well. And he's always gonna. That's what I love about Mexican fighters, bro. They just
They're crazy, aren't
they? They love it. And that's gonna definitely make him a problem. We'll see how well he can take Stevenson's shots as well, and if he can do that, then Stevenson is in for a tough night because he'll just you see it with Canelo. If he knows he can take a boxer's punch and he'll just keep moving forward, then the boxer won't know what to do. So Stevenson needs to have a plan A for if he lands his shots and they damage his opponent, and a plan B for if they don't. So whoever has a backup plan that will work, I think, can win the fight. But it's definitely a good fight for boxing. These are the fights that people want, and they like in the previous years, people would want fights like these. I'd look at the state of a super featherweight division and say, these two champions should fight. But we never used to get them, and now I think off the back of a really successful year of boxing last year, in terms of putting the fights people want to see together, I think that like boxing's just building on that now, and they're putting together more. It's a unification fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they're trying to unify the division more, and I think that's exactly the direction it needs to be going if it wants to still, like if boxing wants to still be the best combat sport in the world, then this is what it needs to be doing.
I agree, but surely I'm really happy that the big fights are happening. But surely Taylor Serrano can't be on the same day. That's what I mean. It's like putting Man City, Liverpool on versus Chelsea and I don't know who else. I was going to say Spurs, but I feel that's being way too kind to Spurs.
Some European.
Yeah, it's like putting two massive football games on the same day. I know you're going to have different kickoff times, but still, it's I don't know. Maybe that's just me being pedantic.
I get you though. It is like. Obviously, I'm not saying that the Champions League final is the same as Valdez-Stevenson. Obviously, there'll be way more numbers because it's football. But in terms of importance of things in the sport, like say you got a Champions League final and the last game of a Prem season title decider on at the same time, like people aren't gonna know what to do. But I know what British fans will do. Obviously, if Katie Taylor's fighting, they're gonna go and watch her, especially when Valdez and Stevenson. I think that's going to be more of an American one, but then Serrano is probably, if maybe on par with Claressa Shields, maybe just a bit smaller profile in terms of women's boxing than Claressa Shields. But a lot of American fighters are going to want to watch her as well. So it's going to be a tough one. All I know is that Taylor Serrano is the fight of both women's career.
Yeah.
Both women's career. I've been saying for too long that Taylor, you know, Eddie Hearn talks all the game about her. Obviously, we know how talented she is, but we haven't seen her fight.
In her last fight against an older opponent, I remember watching it thinking, Taylor looked a little bit on the ropes.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit kind of off par. Little like kind of a lot more average than we've seen her in previous fights, definitely. But I think she's one of them fighters that she kind of lacked a little because she knew that the opponent, you know, it wasn't a big occasion. But now with the Serrano fight, I think she'll step up, you know, train her ass off for it, and just try and give the best performance of her career. But that is just huge for women's boxing. I can't emphasize how big that is. That fight had to happen. If they want to say like what proper like women's world #1 outside of Clarissa Shields there is out of those two. So it's so good that it's put together. But as you said, little counterproductive that it's on at the same time as Stevenson Valdez. It's just frustrating.
It is massive for women's boxing, like you said, and it is counterproductive. But I was just gonna say I really enjoy and I'm pleased with the way women's boxing is going. We're going to mention Lauren Price a little bit later after we talk about Frazer Clarke, but it's going down the right path. Finally, Valdez, Stevenson. There's the only thing I don't want to hide behind, and this is a fight that can help promote the sport. That's what we said, 10 minutes ago. But the only thing I think that can tarnish it, and we shouldn't forget that Oscar's failed a drug test last September, and that was ahead of the Consejo fight. A fight that, again, we said arguably most people thought Consejo should have won. Valdez, and there's no shame in that, by the way, that Valdez almost lost that fight, because Consejo is a very good fighter with an excellent amateur record. But for me, this is a fight for the diehard fans. We've all been waiting for it, but let's not shy away from the drug issue here. I don't think you can just... For me, that fight should never have gone ahead. I know it was under a different board, but I don't think you can just brush past that for Oscar. Yeah,
no, agreed. It's going to be something now, whatever, just kind of like it is with Canelo, like whatever he goes on to achieve now, that's always going to get brought up by fans. They're always going to say, but remember when you did this, that wasn't good, was it? And that's always going to bring him down a peg or two. Even say he beats Stevenson, say he becomes undisputed super featherweight champion, people are going to say,
you're not going to forget that.
Yeah, like, we're not going to forget how you juiced, and you were probably juicing for fights that you weren't. Do you know what I mean? It's a tough one. Like that, it doesn't. As you said, it doesn't go away. It won't go away. I can look past it because I feel like it's been resolved. But when you're actually looking at Valdez's whole career now, that is going to be something.
Tarnished it.
Yeah, it's definitely tarnished it.
Well, anyway, it has tarnished it. But 30th of April for that one, Shakur Stevenson, Oscar Valdez. We'll talk about nearer the time, but huge fight. Yeah. A bit closer to home, and for me, this is a fight I begged BBC Radio Derby to cover. And I'm not sure if I'll get it, but our boy, the 2020 bronze medalist, the former Team GB heavyweight, Frazer Clarke, makes his professional debut on the 19th of February. It's going to be a big night in Manchester. And it's only a month ago, actually, since Frazer signed with Boxer, Sky Sports, and Ben Shalom. He's also with Anthony Joshua's management label, 258 MGT. Yeah. He'll be fighting on the Amir Khan Brook fight, which we've also spoken about in other episodes, so go back and listen. So he'll be fighting on the undercard of that. For me, I've got to be honest, at the Olympics with Frazer, I've said this to you before, I wasn't particularly impressed with him, just because, in case you don't remember, for those listening, Francis Morad Aliyev was disqualified in the quarterfinal because of his headbutting antics. So he kind of had that free pass to the semi-final, and then he got the cut in the semi-final against the guy from Uzbekistan, Jalolov. So who has an excellent amateur record as well. So I don't know about his Olympic performances. They don't really convince me. Saying that, you have to be the very best of the very best to be with Team GB. Yeah. And I know how hard Frazer's worked in Loughborough, and he's represented their country. You have to be special to do that. This fight for Frazer coming up on the 19th of Feb, it will be career-defining. It's career-defining because if he loses, it's all over before it's already started. Yeah. If he wins, then he's on his path. They've got this 5-year plan in place to become a world champion in 5 years. How do you think he'll do? It's hard to say when you're just coming from... He's 30 years old and he's only making his way through now. Yeah. How do you see it?
That's the thing. That's the thing with Olympic boxers, isn't it? They step in late. They can accomplish big things in the amateur setup, but staying and waiting to accomplish those big things is gonna mean that you go into the pros later. But I mean, the confidence that Frazer has right now, you know,
high.
I watch him on socials and I see the way he conducts himself. Like, you can tell he's just ready to step in and just try and do his very best to take this heavyweight scene by storm. And that's what he needs to do. Come in with immediate effect, be convincing in his performances. I know you said in the Olympics, I feel like he was kind of unlucky that he didn't get to show off how well he could perform in the Olympics, but I feel like everything happens for a reason. Do you know what I mean? He's trained so hard to get there, and it was just I guess it was kind of an unfortunate series of events the way he got it. But I still believe he did deserve that bronze medal. There's no denying that.
Oh, there's no denying the work that he put in and that he deserves to be where he is today, because that man, and we've spoken to him on the podcast, and you go back and listen, the grind that man has put in over the amount of years he's been with this sport.
Several years, yeah.
It's you take your hat off to him.
Yeah,
and he hasn't given up. And that's okay, you can make the argument that he's late coming into the game. You have to admire his work ethic and his belief, and it's not his enthusiasm for the sport.
It's not
his
died,
determination. It's not gone. It's still there.
And I feel like it's even gone, like, just built up now because he's signed into the pros.
He's bounced off his doubters.
Yeah, definitely.
He's used that to fuel him.
Yeah.
And he's now in a position where he's making his debut on a massive card, Khan VS Brook, that everyone's going to be watching anyway. And I think it's good for Amir Khan and for Kell Brook that you've got Frazer on the undercard, because
it's going to be one that kind of draws eyes to the card early as well. Obviously, everyone's going to be there for the main event, but putting someone on like Clarke, then like everyone obviously that pays attention to the Olympics, pays attention to amateur boxing, they're going to realise now, be like, oh, that's great. Like, same with the Liam Beefy Smith and Anthony Fowler fight. They put Pete McGrail on the undercard. I love that. I love seeing that. Yeah, because it got me excited for the undercard. Then obviously already excited for it. I'm excited to see any boxing, but it kind of gets you going a bit more before the main event. So it's good that that Sky doing it that way. And I think February, in that sense, just a massive fight for a massive month for boxing. You see, like, the boxers that are fighting that month. This is huge. So be really exciting. You know, it's literally only a month away. So I'm really looking forward to watching him debut and just watching his journey from now into the pros. As I said, I think he needs to do it with immediate effect. Come in, win convincingly against big names as soon as he can get them.
I don't think they're going to give him someone who he can't beat.
Yeah, for a while. For like a year or two maybe.
Because you got to be thinking.
Depends how active you are, isn't it? Like, if he's got if he's fighting like twice a year, then they're not going to give him a 50-50 fight until like 2 or 3 years. But this is the thing with Olympians as well. You see it with like pretty much every Olympian that comes through, especially every medalist. They only takes them between like 5 to 10 fights to start actually attracting the big names. Because if they're fighting well and they're fighting,
well, they've had the platform already.
Yeah, exactly. Then they get fast tracked. And remember, we were speaking to Galal Yafai last year. Gold medalist, by the way.
Well done, NBA. I think an MBE as well.
Yeah, literally the man. He was saying like that's his expectations when he goes pro, which he has done now as well, I believe. Or he's like told people that he wants to go pro, and he's going to be making those moves soon if he hasn't already. He was saying that's his expectations. He's like, I'm going to do well in the Olympics, and then I'm going to get fast tracked to a world title when I step in the pros, because that's like nothing less than what I deserve. And I'm like,
he does, but he's not wrong. They do. I think amateur boxers often don't get the respect they deserve. Whereas a lot of people are comparing Frazer to Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
And I think in a way that's a massive compliment to Frazer, but also you got to do Frazer justice here. Frazer's worked really hard. Not that Joyce hasn't, but I mean, he deserves everything he's got.
Well, I think Joyce. I literally haven't kept my ear to this story. I only like saw it when it was going on. But I think he might even his performances in the Olympics. You know how it went with Tony Yoka in the final. I think that's getting overturned, isn't it? And I don't know if he's got it yet, but I think they might be getting him the gold medal for Rio 2016. So I think both of both boxers. I think it's a great comparison, and if Frazer Clarke can get up there early enough, start winning fights straight away and is active enough. Joyce versus Frazer Clarke.
Joyce Frazer Clarke, and
Joyce
you know
Frazer
what?
Clarke.
The reason I kind of
They fought already, haven't they? Joyce Frazer Clarke. We need to run that back in the pros. I need to see that again.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that'd be insane.
Well, there's a 5-year plan for Frazer in place, and at the end of the 5-year plan, Ben Shalom's come out and said Frazer will be a world champion. He will be.
I rate the confidence.
But whether he's going to be the next Anthony Joshua,
we'll see. It's. Do you know what I mean? As a promoter, you've got to be telling people that. You've got to be trying to get as many people as possible to believe that, you know, this guy that's just signed on with you has just had a great amateur career and he's now going into the pros. You want to make him the next big thing. That's exactly what Eddie Hearn did with Anthony Joshua when he came through. That's exactly what Ben Shalom's going to do with Frazer Clarke, and that's their job as promoters. And now it's up to the boxers to make sure that what the promoters are saying is spot on.
That it happens.
Yeah.
Well, someone who's also local to us in Derby and who's also wanting to get to that next level, to be fast-tracked into the big MMA scene, Alan Barron,
Yes.
Polish Bantamweight. He's a champion, he's training in Derby, and you've been busy. You spoke to him, right?
Yeah. So, literally, I think last year with COVID, it was a bit of a tough one for me, especially like as a journalist to kind of get to different events, get to places, see people, see things, and then I had a project that needed doing for university, and I was like, bang, this is, because obviously, don't feel like I say it enough, but big MMA fan as well, and I was like, finally I have a platform, I have direction to go and do cover MMA for the first time. So I hit up Gracie Barra Derby, amazing gym, amazing people. I cannot speak highly of that place enough. Like, especially as a budding journalist, you kind of I don't know if it's the same with everyone, obviously, but I get a bit anxious.
But also,
get a bit nervous.
You appreciate two things. You appreciate the kindness that they give you when you're there, and the access that they give you.
Definitely, that was it, and they, both of those were like, that is literally the two things I worry about. And they let me get all angles to the gym for filming, interviewing, everything. And I was able to, you know, I had Alan, had Summer, Jared, the list goes on of the people that were in there, just coming up and like offering themselves for an interview, man. It was great. And
it makes such a difference, doesn't it, to the actual interview itself. I mean, this is where like the middlemen aspect of our podcast comes into play. And this is the perspective we can give you on what it's like to be a journalist when you're interviewing these people.
Yeah.
But it's like you say, I remember with Jamie Ward, who's a Derby and Nottingham Forest legend, Northern Ireland legend, really big name in football, and he plays for Buxton now down the road. And when they had their cup run, I interviewed him, and I wasn't nervous, but something went wrong with the technology, and we lost the whole interview at Radio Derby.
Did you?
But something you don't forget is he was kind enough to then come back on. Like he put his baby to bed, he came back on, we did the whole interview again. And he gave you that time. It's the small things you don't forget, and then you see them at the game and they refer to you by name, and it's the really small things that as a journalist make a massive difference.
Definitely, and you definitely need that, like when you're going into those situations, you kind of, because you're nervous yourself, but they might not like know that, especially athletes kind of don't really think about it. They're just there to do their interview, aren't they? It's part of their job, you know. Fair enough, I'd be the same. But then, like, people like that kind of just put you at ease, do you know what I mean? And that kind of helps you be able to conduct your interview better. You put more into a relaxed mind state, relaxed headspace, and that's exactly where you want to be before an interview. And the guys at Gracie Barrow were like that as well. They gave me like so much time to set up, like let me just all relaxing. And you know, fair play, shout out to Jamie Ward for that as well. That's a top thing to do. You won't find many athletes that will do that. You know, come back on to do an interview. They'll say, "Oh, you know, not my problem,"
exactly.
and then leave it. But top man for that.
Well, top man in Jamie Ward, top man in Alan Barron is what he had to say to you. So there was Alan Barron speaking to Max about the MMA world, which you're very familiar with.
Yes.
As you said before, Alan's interview, you're a massive fan of MMA.
It was nice as well, because obviously kind of the only MMA exposure I get and you kind of get as a British fan is just the UFC. Digest a lot of that, which is good, but then going to a gym and watching people train and watching people live it.
Smelling the coffee.
Yeah, smelling the coffee, and then, you know, it kind of gives you a different perspective. You actually watch them run through drills like you see in the fights. You know, the training's great, and it gives you a whole new perspective, like a football journalist going to watch
any training session.
Train, yeah. Or
when you go behind closed doors, let me tell you, it's something very, very special, and you get to see what... Well, no one else gets to see. I mean, very often the media don't even get to see it. It's like you're lucky to be there.
It is really good access. And yeah, no, Alan's a great guy. Great talking to him. Funny guy as well, to be fair. And yeah, what a time that was covering MMA.
Yeah, we wish him luck, Alan. Same with Frazer, and
yes,
hopefully we'll get some more Frazer Clarke content coming our way in the next month. He's got his debut on the 19th of Feb. I said earlier I wanted to mention Lauren Price, one of Frazer Clarke's teammates in Tokyo 2020 with Team GB from Wales. I'm guessing that's where he's fighting. And well, she won middleweight gold in Tokyo last summer, and I think she perhaps doesn't get the credit she deserves. And she's got an MBE in the New Year's Honours list, so really happy for her, because I think she deserves everything coming her way, and she seems like a really nice girl who's got her head screwed on and has clearly got a lot of talent. Yeah, unreal talent, unreal personality from what I've seen of her. Haven't seen too much, but this is the thing. The gap with women and men right now in boxing. I mean, it's going to be like this in most sports for a while. Do you know what I mean? But they should not be. You know, women that are doing things like that, they should not be denied. They should not be not given the media exposure they deserve. Do you know what I mean? I feel like Lauren should be covered straight away. I think to be fair, certain publications have been good to her and given her enough, but I feel like overall she deserves more, because what she accomplished was huge. Massive for Team GB, and obviously massive for Wales as well. I was even, when I was back home spending time in Wales, I feel like people weren't talking about it enough. I was like, this is, this could be like your next. That's also part of our job, is to raise as journalists, is to raise the platform, and to not be ignorant or arrogant enough to ignore these people, because perhaps, I think the whole mindset is people don't care. That comes down to us as journalists. We got to make them care. Quite, and we you will care, and we determine whether they care or not, and that's sure a big responsibility we've got in our job. So definitely, you're right. That's why I like talking about people like Lauren, and I'm glad she's doing well. We'll stay with boxing for a bit, and we'll go to Australia, where it's all been kicking off in sport anyway. The London Under. I'm going to edit that bit. I'm going to put that right at the start. Bob Arum, who says a lot. Bob Arum. Yeah, for a very old man, he has a very young mouth. Yes, he does. And he said that Vasyl Lomachenko's first choice fight is to challenge George Kambosos Jr. And the talks are underway. Now that's like the biggest bit of that. The talks are actually underway, which I don't know. First off, very quickly, because I'm really fed up of hearing about Novak Djokovic, and if we're going to talk about it, let's get it over and done with. Whilst we're on Australia, I have no sympathy for the guy. Get the vaccine. Stop thinking you're above everyone else. He's been deported. He's not playing in the Open, and to be honest, quite right. If they're the rules of the land, then respect them. Don't go over there and try and barge your way in with special papers that. For me, it's either as simple as we don't live, as our good friend Niall Hickman always says, we don't live in North Korea. I'm not forcing anyone. I'm not preaching. But if you go over there, then you've just got to respect the rules of the land. Yeah, it's a shame that we've, the world's come to a place where you have to have things like a vaccine that people don't always trust to enter the country. But that is the time we live in. We either have to accept it or we're not allowed there. So, just because obviously Djokovic is just an unbelievable tennis player. Yeah, for me, he's one of the best ever. Goes without saying, but do you know what I mean? That doesn't mean just because of what you've accomplished in your career, you can just bypass the laws of the land. Do you know what I mean? So you have to respect it, and
I guess he hasn't respected it in his free will, and that's the decisions that decisions that affect you as an athlete nowadays. It's a shame that it has to be that way, but it is, and if you can't accept them, you gotta get out.
Well, there you go. Djokovic talk ticked off the list.
Yes,
sorted.
done.
Let's move on from.
Let's go into proper Australian sport.
Exactly, from Jocko to Lomachenko, and yeah, like we were saying, wants to fight George Kambosos Jr. For me, you look at Kambosos, and I know he's been beaten the likes of. Sorry, I know Lomachenko's beaten the likes of Anthony Corolla, and he beat Richie Comey, but there's no stopping Kambosos. I mean, this guy stands on top of the world. He upset Teofimo Lopez. He's got every major belt in the most thrilling lightweight division. First off, Aaron has to clear the COVID problems anyway. Like with Djokovic, he's got to see to all of that. Even if they do, I know Lama's a former 3-division world champion. A lot of people think, and this is what we were talking about earlier, he's a bigger name than Devin Haney, but he ain't beating George Kambosos.
Don't think Lomachenko's doing it?
No.
Nah. I feel like he's found his form again. I feel like the Lopez loss was just a little hiccup in his career. Do you see the way he's bounced back to that with 2 wins, 2 TKO wins, Nakatani and Comey, the top contenders of the lightweight division, put himself right back on the pedestal. And the way he's performed after the Lopez loss has kind of made me think, that if he was to rematch Lopez, he would beat him, especially seeing how Lopez performed in the Kambosos match.
Yeah.
But this is right. Pretend that Kambosos and Loma are going to fight and not Kambosos Haney. This is a fun fight because it's the typical Lomachenko lost to Lopez, Kambosos beat Lopez, so by that logic, Kambosos must beat Lomachenko. But it barely ever works like that.
It's never that.
So it just makes it so 50-50. But as you said, Lomachenko will be flying right now. But Lopez was flying in his confidence, in his preparation, in his training up to Kambosos and still lost. I would like to think that I know that Kambosos and Lopez are 2 different people, and Kambosos will, perform like he did in his last fight in his next fight as well. But you never know, and Lomachenko can neutralise whatever game plan you want to do. Still have to respect how good this man is, and I feel like even if he doesn't beat Kambosos, he will win another world title before he retires, because he just is that good. But it will be interesting. This is why Kambosos' nickname is Ferocious, because it will be a ferocious fight. He goes there, just brings the fire inside the pocket, throws heavy, fast exchanges, and going toe-to-toe with Lomachenko is never easy, but going toe-to-toe with Kambosos is never easy either. So, and I feel like Kambosos has brought himself into that discussion now, especially when last year we were talking about the 4 kings of, who are they? The 4 kings of the lightweight division, right? Who are we calling them? Haney, Lopez, Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Tank Davis, right? I don't know if Ryan Garcia is going to come back to lightweight. Currently, Tank is not competing at lightweight. Now I've got Devin Haney, and he's the only one out of those 4 with a title at that weight now. He's the only one that's kind of stayed relevant through that discussion.
Well, that's why people want him fighting George Kambosos.
Well, I mean, to be fair, right, so as you were saying, with Lomachenko being a bigger name than Haney, definitely feel like he would probably bring more money and more numbers to the fight. But I mean, when you're talking about money as a boxer, you're gonna want that, aren't you? Don't really blame people for that. But for Haney, right, Lomachenko brings no title on the line. Haney brings the only title on the line that Kambosos does not have. Kambosos doesn't have the title. He's one world title away from becoming undisputed champion.
So why would he want to fight Loma?
If you're not going to fight for that, you just shouldn't be in boxing. That should be the fight that you want. It should be the glory that you're going for, not the money. Lomachenko, beat Haney and make your first undisputed title defense against Lomachenko. That's the way to go. Aaron, hold off for a year. Let Kambosos fight Haney in Australia, where Kambosos deserves it. And let's get an undisputed champion, because we're only 1 world title away. Why would the other champions bother around fighting people that don't have a title when you can make this fight happen and make another division undisputed? This is what I'm saying about boxing. The direction that it's going in needs to be doing these things, like making the division's undisputed. That's what people want to see.
Well, listen, we're having this conversation because of something Bob Arum said. And
I know.
That's the only thing we've got to remember there. This is something Bob Arum said, right? So
you've got to take it with a pinch of salt.
You have, but equally he's creating exciting conversation, and that's what boxing needs. From exciting conversation then with Bob Arum, a businessman who knows his stuff, and to a conversation about businessmen who perhaps don't know their stuff.
Do not know their stuff.
Let's talk about football, and we need to talk about Derby County.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a very sensitive subject. So all I'm going to say is that Derby County Football Club has a soul like no other I've ever come across in football. But unfortunately, there are too many people who want to rip that beating heart out of a club who have contributed more to the Football League, I think, than most others in the top 4 divisions. From Steve Bloomer to Brian Clough, even now to Tom Lawrence and Wayne Rooney.
Yeah.
The history of Derby alone is something so special, and they're a founding member of the Football League. Yes, they've been very poorly run, and I understand to an extent the frustrations that some people feel, but the way the whole situation is being handled it's completely unfair on the fans.
Yeah.
Derby are a way too big a club to fold. It's unthinkable. Derby going into liquidation and folding, and we're not far off that. And I hope someone comes in, and not only with deep pockets, but with a heart, with someone who genuinely cares for a very special football club to a lot of people. And what comforts me is this too shall pass. That's a phrase I often use, I often remember. I think it's the only way you can take comfort with Derby at the moment is this too shall pass. Whatever the outcome, eventually, this nightmare will end. But it's how it ends, and I think the fact that Wayne Rooney at the helm actually provides a lot of comfort. I think Rooney, whatever way this ends up, even if he keeps them up, if he doesn't, and that's we'll talk about Derby's on-pitch performances, he'll go down in the history books. But for a team like Derby Derby at the moment are a wounded animal. The Rams are wounded. And for people to be taking unnecessary shots at Derby, everyone knows who those people are. It just feels wrong for me, and it's really sad actually. Obviously, I've become closer and closer with the club, and this is why it's kind of like consumed my life for the last couple of months. Well, it's been longer than the last couple of months, but it's sad for me. I hope it's all resolved. I hope someone comes in with very deep pockets, with a genuine passion, a genuine care for the club, and that the whole nightmare can be over. That some sympathy, some empathy is shown from others around the world of football, in the world of football. I hope that this petition that's been signed, it's got to Parliament now, or I don't know if the petition has, but it's been spoken about in Parliament now. It just needs to stop. Derby need help. The situation needs to stop, and we need to talk about what's happening on the pitch as well as off it, because it's also a little frustrating to see everything that Rooney's achieved so far completely overshadowed, and understandably so, obviously, by what's going on. So let's go on to a more positive subject, that Derby County could do the impossible. And I think if Derby stayed up from, I think it was minus 21 points, whatever the deduction was, it would be more impressive than Leicester winning the league.
Yeah. Ooh.
That's my statement. I believe it.
No, I might have to agree. I don't know if it's recency bias right now, just because seeing what
I think it's a
Derby
greater
doing,
miracle.
But it's massive, isn't it? It is huge. I think obviously the accomplishment of Leicester in the Prem is bigger, but in terms of how hard it was to do either of those things, I would have to say probably Derby as well. Staying up is a joke. But if you guys haven't signed that petition that Noah was alluding to, about, was it the investigation into the EFL? Yeah,
it's all of it really.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know the massive details of. I know them, but it's so complicated. It's so complex.
Yeah. It's just all we know that it's a mess, and the owners have got them into the mess, and they're not doing much to get them out of it. Only Wayne Rooney and the players are just doing what they can do and just play and just try and win as many games as possible and try and stop it from happening, keep the club up. But if you guys haven't signed that petition, it would help the club massively. In the words of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, sign the ting.
Sign the ting.
Sign the ting. Literally sign that. I did myself, because you hear Noah talk there, and that's not even a Derby fan. Do you know what I mean? So for the Derby fans that are actually going through this, the emotions they must be feeling, you know, because people like to say, oh yeah, but like why would you let your...
I saw a tweet from a guy that lost their dad during COVID. It's like,
Yeah.
first I've lost my dad, and now I'm about to lose my club. And people, so I do some stuff at Radio Derby, and people call in sometimes, and and you get some people that simply call in just for a chat. They just want to chat, and all they have is Derby.
Yeah.
They have us and they have Derby. And if Derby were to go, I mean, it's such a massive part. Every football club, it's a massive part of someone's life.
I was gonna say, people don't talk about enough how important that, like, some people just think it's a game, but it is a massive. It is like people kind of depend on it for like happiness, and their life is, you know, people might call it sad, but people don't understand it.